Haha. This is the Pro Wrestling Review. This is Bernie Krasman from the Daily News.
And I guess I'm Renee Detour from the Tribune Review.
And I'm JT Southern.
I guess I could be Tammy or Tanya, depending on your taste. Combetti, as always. Back with a vengeance.
Boy, guys,
Tanya?
funny thing happened while you guys were gone last week.
Yeah, I happened to catch that little show on Saturday nights at 8, the one that I'm usually on, and
Yeah.
it was very interesting,
Yeah.
to say the least. But
Hey, when they make the real Hollywood story about Pro Wrestling Review.
Bob will be the first guy we beat the hell out of. But
Yeah. Well, I don't know, Rennie, you weren't here last week.
yeah, I mean, I guess I have something to say.
Yeah, it's Rennie, by the way, we should point out.
Right, well, you know, if you want to
With
get
a-
it
with
right,
an IE.
Yeah.
that's fine.
Not along about E or Y or anything.
But I mean, I was a little taken by Bubba's comments. I didn't realize how thin-skinned he was. I still stand by what I said at SmackDown. I thought his match was pretty bad. I'm not going to change my opinion. But again, on the other hand, I'm not going to resort to the tactics that Bubba used here last week. I'm not going to mispronounce names. I'm not going to sling insults. I'm just going to again stand behind what I said, and that's that your match at SmackDown wasn't very good. And as far as September 8th is concerned, I'm going to do everything I can to be there. As anybody, these guys on the panel know, I usually work weekends and at night, but like I said, I'm taking the steps necessary to try to be there September 8th, just to hear what you have to say and maybe talk to you face to face, and if we can maybe work some things out. And like I said, it's unfortunate what happened last week, but again, I'm just going to stick by my opinion, and hopefully we'll be able to talk September 8th.
And we should point out, too, there will be members of the Pro Wrestling Review staff there. We kind of all talked about this, and we're going to show up, because this shouldn't be a pissing match, really. And, it was last week, and, we tried to deflect that.
Yeah.
Deflect that. But we're going to go out September 8th. I mean, Bubba does make somewhat a legitimate point that we haven't been to as many local shows, so we're going to go out and check it out. We're friends with Shirley Doe. We haven't seen him work in a while. He's
been on the show
friend of the
a few times, usually slapping me around. But it's interesting. One of the lost members in all this, Corey Kay, Bubba's opponent at SmackDown. I'm just kind of curious to see what he thinks and what he thinks of the whole situation. Whether he takes the opinion, maybe he feels the same way Bubba does about your review of the match, or doesn't care, or does feel maybe his match wasn't that good, and maybe whatever his opinion is, I'd be interested in hearing it.
It's just a damn shame we don't get the same kind of response from Steve Blackman every week when we say he sucks, his matches suck.
He usually calls me, but
Blackman does.
Yeah, I got his home phone. He lives in Pennsylvania.
I don't know if you're privileged or not having his home number.
He's a tough guy.
That might actually be a detriment if you think about it. But the one issue I do want to take with Bubba is the fact that he says that we sit here or we write things and we say that this we didn't like this, we didn't like that, blah blah blah. And he said something to the effect of, you don't know what it's like, you've never been in a wrestling school. Actually, I did take a little bit of wrestling training, nothing to the extent of what probably Bubba and anybody else on the indie circuit has done. But, I have done, gone through at least the basic steps. And, you don't have to tell me how tough it is to be a wrestler, because I've been defending this my entire life. So for him to say that, it's kind of, it's kind of awkward. It's kind of an absurd thing to say, because you don't have to tell me what these guys go through. I certainly know that, and that wasn't even what this was about. It was just a simple criticism that obviously you took offense to.
Just to expand on that a little bit, as you saw last week, he asked me if I've ever been in the ring. I've been in maybe 3 matches. It was more or less a favor for a friend working a match as a wrestler. I have been a referee. I have been trained more than you, I think it's safe to say, but less, as you said, than obviously most of the independent workers. And I've said on the show, obviously, I wasn't good enough to do it. And that's why I feel I'm better doing this. I feel I was better in other areas, not being a wrestler, being a referee, contributing in other ways to 2 promotions I helped. So I think maybe more than you, I know a little bit more what it's like. And for Bubba to say that, it's really irresponsible.
Well, just to expand on what Rennie just said, I mean, you write a column, I write a column, we write them every week. And, we have spent the better part of the last couple of years defending the business. And, on this show, there's been countless times when we've brought up groups like the PTC and the guy who writes the New York Post, we won't mention on the show anymore. We have burned the torches, for the WWF and for pro wrestling in general, because the general public doesn't understand and the news media doesn't understand what it's really about and doesn't want to take the time to understand what it's about. And I just think that, some of the comments made were very, very ill-advised. And I think we're going to get to some letters here in a moment that I think a lot of the viewers at home kind of got that point. And I think you're going to be surprised by some of the things you hear.
Before we get to the letters, I'd like to add one point here. I give all professional athletes and NASCAR all the credit in the world for going through just about everything. The old cliche, NASCAR. They're not athletes. It's a recreational sport. They're driving around the track, but for another time. The blood, sweat, and tears, as the old cliche goes, what they go through, the crap they endure all throughout their tenure as athletes. I give them all the credit in the world. But, on the other hand, you have movie reviewers, food reviewers, and TV music reviewers. Do these people direct the movies? Do they make the food? Do they write the songs? Hell no, they don't. But they are critics. They're telling the artist what they'd like to see out of them. Maybe 9 times out of 10 they're trying to help the artist. Hey, this sucks because of this reason. This is no good because of this. They're helping them. And I'm sure there's the occasional ones that are just out for personal vendettas. But I think this was more of a just...
Anger.
Yeah, anger.
Sorry, I didn't mean to speak for you.
Well, not on Rennie's behalf. I mean, he was just... Obviously, the match was not very good. I mean, could I wrestle a better match? No. Possibly intoxicated? Maybe. We'll think about that, in the commercial break here. But in all seriousness, we weren't doing it as a personal vendetta or anger against, well, not we, you, against Bubba. It was more along the lines of just, hey, this is what we saw, this is how we interpreted it. And if you can't take it, take some responsibility for your own actions.
I think the word you want to look for, and I know dealing with local politicians at the Daily News, we've said this to many before. You thrust yourself into this position, get thicker skin. And from the black and white, I can tell we've kind of got to go to commercial right now, so we're going to come back. We're going to get into some of these letters and find out what you people at home thought about what happened last week.
About the altercation that happened last week between these fine gentlemen and Bubba the Bulldog. But Jim, why don't you go ahead and start with
I always get
one of the
the
letters.
best ones. This is from
I'd like to point out though we did get a lot of responses.
Yeah, hopefully we can get the most of them.
We'll try.
Thanks to everybody who did mail in, by the way. This one's from Bill Porter, who had a tough decision watching the TV Guide channel or our show. Here's what he said.
That's a good channel.
Hey, that
I'd
that
watch it over
Hollywood
this
Minute
show.
they
This
did.
show sucks.
I have
Perfect.
digital cable. They don't give it to us. Seriously, it's blacked out.
Don't talk blank on Bubba. And he actually did swear. It was great.
Expletive.
Everyone's entitled to their own opinion, right? You two reviewers sitting on a public access TV show ranting and raving about wrestling, but when a B94 frontman comes onto your show and expresses his opinion, you guys get defensive. And I already,
It's not public access.
yeah, that's the
Point
first
out.
problem. Number one, everyone's entitled to their opinion, but we're not allowed to rant and rave as he puts it, so I guess that's a whole problem. What I leave off. He's entitled to think what he wants and to express that in any way he wants. Again, our ranting and raving doesn't count.
Excluded.
So stop talking blank on Bubba, damn it. Or the next time, yada, yada, yada. Also, now, see, I don't know if this part's serious or what, but I'm going to read this anyway. It doesn't really have anything to do with Bubba. Also, if you want to take a different approach to your show, why don't you cover the only great wrestling federation in the world, Women of Wrestling?
Nope, throw the letter away.
I gotta wonder. I gotta wonder how serious you can take a man's comments who has enough of a life to sit home on a Saturday night and decide between us and the TV Guide channel.
Yeah,
It is tempting.
and Women of Wrestling. I guess he was just. I guess
He
doesn't
knows
have
he's
the
watching
patience.
reruns, right? I mean, this stuff isn't happening like week
Well,
by
that's
week.
Terry Gold, man. She just, she's a trooper.
This stuff happened like in '99.
But you got to admit the dedication to sit through our show, which apparently, in his opinion, is crap anyway. And just to get through our show to get to Women of Wrestling, that is really, really pathetic.
Well, we do have before our show comes on that one. I guess female says watch Women in Wrestling, then she does the claw thing. So that might be able to hold his
Is that what they do?
appetite.
I never
I
actually
guess it
watched it.
entices some.
Oh, well, we should move on to
Yeah.
some of the more well-written and intelligent
Why don't you jump to
responses.
something, Tom? Because I'm going to read some stuff from my portion of the. Yeah.
I don't know what was on that anyway. This is from Mira. I'm not sure how to pronounce the last name, so I won't, from Monroeville. First off, let me start by saying I love your show. Watch it every week. Thank you. Wanted to make some comments about the imbecile Bubba that you had on this past show. I'm just paraphrasing this, so bear with me here. He had no right to comment on Rennie's comments about his match at SmackDown. Hasn't he heard of free speech? I agree. I could probably go on here. I think Rennie was absolutely correct. Anytime I've seen Bubba wrestle, his ring techniques absolutely suck. I guess to watch his matches personally. If he were a true professional in any kind of talent, why isn't he in the WWF instead of on the radio?
I guess Bubba can go kick her door down now and start yelling at her.
See, when Banana Dawn comes back to B94 and they stop playing that boy band crap, then I'll start listening to B94 again. But she's absolutely right. I mean, this is your opinion. I mean, whether or not it was valid or not, it is your opinion. So, my opinion still stands that the TV Guide channel is one hell of a channel.
It's exciting.
You say that to me like I'm criticizing you.
You don't watch TV Guide channel?
No.
I like that Hollywood Minute, even though it's only like 15 seconds. Go ahead, Rennie. I'm sorry.
No, actually, I wanted to really stay away from reading any of these letters since I'm kind of part of it. But I did pick 2 out that are kind of general. This one doesn't have a name or an address on it, but I'm going to read it anyway. I just watched the segment with Bubba the Bulldog, and I must say he made a complete ass of himself. You guys have the right to do what you do. How long did it take him to write that promo he cut? Because he wasn't speaking off the top of his head. Well, maybe we'll have to ask him if you want to come down September 8th, and you can ask him yourself. I don't know how long it took, because
Oh, he had a
wasn't
couple
here.
weeks between SmackDown and our show. So
Yeah, so he's basically, just getting angrier and angrier every week.
The
But
contempt is building.
this one's from Mike. Hey guys, is there any chance of you replaying last night's episode with Bubba the Bulldog? Actually, we replayed it before this week, so hopefully that quenched your thirst for more Bubba.
Yeah.
But again, if you're not completely satisfied, you can show up September 8th and do whatever you want to him. No, I'm just
That's
kidding.
McKee's Rocks, by the way.
You know, we also should point out, because we did have some people in some of the, especially the comments I'm going to get to here from my section of the webpage, saying that, well, it's really suspicious you guys keep plugging his show. Yeah, I mean, that's true, but there also are, despite what Bubba did on our show last week, there are some legitimately good wrestlers on their shows. No, I mean, that's no offense to Bubba. I know that's going to be taken wrong. But as we mentioned before, Shirley Doe's been on this show before. He's a good friend of the PWR staff. There's a lot of very good wrestlers there, like Super Hente, like Orion, who's definitely worth going out and spending money on. And we've always, have promoted local shows here. Go out to this show, go out to that show. And again, to send out the invitation to any local promoters, send us email at prowrestlingreview@lycos.com. We'll talk about your show. But we got a lot of response. I put a question up on the webpage. Did you see Bubba's appearance, and what did you think?
I think I responded on your webpage.
Yeah, thank you, Jim.
Oh,
We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 at least that I have here that I printed up, which is within about a 24-hour span, which is great. Most of the people were in response. We had Frank Marnell from McKeesport, PA, saying he used to be a fan of Bubba, and after he saw what he did on the show, he's not so much any longer. And I'm sorry if I mispronounced any of your names, but Dan Jakubeck of Portview, Pennsylvania, he thought that he thought that Bubba acted very irresponsibly and irrationally.
So
and
did
no right
I. I
to
wasn't
scream.
here.
Yeah.
That's a well-written letter from Dan, by the way.
Yes. We had Bill Kress from Baldwin Borough saying that the show's great. He's spreading the word around about what happened. Doesn't know what Bubba's point was. I kind of agree. We had a guy, Goon Man, from Flowtown, South
Bill
Carolina. Yeah, I
South
assume it's
Carolina?
Florence, South Carolina, saying he doesn't have DirecTV and we're not on in his market, but he heard secondhand what happened. He doesn't think Bubba has the right to criticize. I agree. I don't agree necessarily, but I think he went a little bit overboard. But we got a couple negative ones. The first one was from the very crafty, what a great nickname, Joe Mama from Homestead, who couldn't even spell his own hometown. But he said he wished Bubba would put us through a table. I do too.
He didn't quite use that verbiage.
No.
If that would have happened, you would have been booking his promotion for the next few years.
Mark from Pleasant Hills, I'd actually like to read verbatim before we get a commercial here. Even though Bubba worked a pretty good shoot, I thought every word was totally deserved. You guys are totally jaded smarks. You are so annoyed with your own lives. You take it out on professional wrestling.
Jaded. Sorry,
The
Brian.
cliche you should pay attention to is the fact that you bury a truth within a lie to make it believable. And then, he plugs his column. So I guess our show and our website's good enough for you to plug your little column.
Yeah,
But
I just want to say something. I'm not jaded with my own life. I'm pretty pissed off at Tom's life, though.
let me say this, and I hope this doesn't take any value away from our show. Why do you take this so damn seriously? I mean, we take the show seriously as we want to come on and put on a show with good content and give responsible criticism. But I think, evidence 2 weeks ago with the Hulk Hogan special, we don't take this show that seriously. That we sit there and sweat blood at home trying to think of things to come up with. Settle down, Mark. Go out and get yourself a girlfriend and go run a movie or something, because you're a little high-strung.
But right back, again, we love you all.
So yeah.
All right, well, we're going to come back and we're going to actually do our jobs and talk about wrestling, so stay with us.
Humorous, the fact that we have 3 mortal enemies and we're a rinky-dink show that's actually passed up more for the TV Guide show. Bethel Park hates us, Hank Hudson hates us, and now Bubba hates us. But the TV Guide channel is more
where'd you
entertaining.
get 3? I'm thinking, who are the other 2? And
Well, Bethel Park, the
Yeah, I
city as
forgot
a
about Bethel
whole,
Park.
they kicked us out after they gave us the key to the
It's
city.
a little Dinkwater town.
There was torch burnings that were pretty ugly. They were.
Well, the police handcuffed Jim that one time.
Did you ever
It's
see
just because I
live?
asked for directions to Bethel Park Stadium.
That was uncalled for.
Did you ever see live tar?
So
rings,
you
though? That's what I asked.
Riverhounds.
Hey, they're coming back. They'll make the playoffs.
next year.
It looks, well, maybe.
They're pretty much out there.
That guy Weldon from Brazil, man. You think
Oh, yeah,
you get a
that's-
Brazil,
that's
you get a
enough
guy on
there.
a Brazil national team. You think he could score some goals in a year?
No, don't turn the channel.
Come
We're
to
done
the
talking
ball,
stuff.
Welton. That's all I'm saying. Don't
Hey,
wait for
someone
it to
cut
get
off
to
Tony
you.
Miola down there so we can start talking about something else.
Red card him.
Don't even get out of this stream.
Why? What are you
I'll
gonna
put you
do?
through this table.
That's gonna be really freaking
That
hard. 'cause
comes
it's
from
plastic.
Joe Mama from Homestead.
Home speed. Okay.
What a loser. But we were going to talk about Raw here in just a moment. Actually, we'll just do it right now, I guess. Some of the events that happened this past
I
week.
think you keep talking about soccer. It's more entertaining.
Well, maybe after this past week, but
Yeah.
I don't know. Me, just at one man sitting in this chair, I fell asleep a couple times during the show. I didn't think it was very good. I think it's a lot of it has to do with having the guys on the road for 6 straight days, which they're not used to. And that kind of sounds like, what babies, but no. I mean, you're not used to that, and that's a different lifestyle to be getting used to. Usually you're on the road half of that time. So I think those guys obviously were tired, and well, so were the writers, but,
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to have to take exception to a lot of the stuff that the writers have been doing. It seems like they're forgetting about what they're actually writing for. This is not Hollywood. As much as Vince McMahon says this is WWF Entertainment, I still think you need to get back to the actual wrestling of it. And it started a few weeks ago with that whole Planet of the Apes and skid after skid.
Yeah.
That's kind of where it took a downturn. But I think they just need to get back to having titles mean something and feuds mean something, because right now they're just kind of going through the motions. No feuds are being advanced. I don't know. You got to get somebody in there that's more in tune with wrestling. From what I've heard, Paul Heyman's had a lot of his ideas shot down in order to keep him in check. But as far as their booking staff is concerned, I think he's the only one that actually, at least a little bit respects the wrestling that's involved. But other than that, the Hollywood writers they're totally flubbing this up.
Well, I think, I don't know if this is an excuse or a problem, but apparently a lot of the roster on WWF and WCW, well, all right, even bother to say that, a lot of the guys are injured. Kane injured, Booker T, just nagging injuries, a lot of guys nicked up. I don't know if that's an excuse or not, but take it for what it's worth.
Well, I'm going to go on the laziness thing a little bit here. I think they are getting a little lazy, and I think one of the ultimate symbols of that is something that probably most people don't think about, but Booker T against the Big Show this past Monday from Raw, who was the referee? It was Nick Patrick. Why would he disqualify Booker T for nailing Big Show with a chair after he's been playing the heel ref all this time? I mean, those are just little things like that, tiny intricate things that, most people probably wouldn't think of, yes, but it is important to the overall fabric of the show.
Well, I think it's just one of those things. I mean, there's a history of wrestling of just forgetting about things, and yeah, it was time to move on. Nick Patrick.
Not like that, though.
Well,
I mean, geez,
I don't know if you need to resolve it or not, but no, I just move on and forget about it. Who cares?
Yeah, well, that pesky Chris Jericho and that other pesky Rob Van Dam actually wrestled in the main event, and believe it or not, it was a good match.
How badly were you screaming when Taz came out?
Was I screaming?
Yes.
I
In a
wasn't.
good way.
I think he screamed more when Rob Van Dam utilized a chin lock.
On Chris Jericho throughout the main event.
That's- I passed out.
I fell off the lazy boy I was sitting on and busted my head open on the ground.
Yeah, let me give
Which we don't condone color or blading on this show.
Let me give Van Dam a little credit, because on the show last week I was critical of his SummerSlam match, saying it was too much of the old Van Dam. He had a great performance on SmackDown with Jeff Hardy, and again, as you mentioned, Tom, on Raw last night, this past Monday. Anyway, where he looked very good and was he's starting to figure out where to time his high spots and when to do some of the more spectacular things instead of doing them one after another after another. And,
It's
nice
amazing.
job.
How long have we said on the show that if he learns to wrestle and learns how to time his high spots, he'd actually be even better than what he is or what he was in ECW?
Tired of being
Was
right.
it? But yep. Well, someone on this panel said it. and
I
hate
think
being
everybody
right.
on this panel
Yeah,
said it.
from time to time we've all said it.
Yeah, that's true too. But see that again. I said a couple weeks ago. That's why you come here to Pro Wrestling Review.
No,
Cheap
what-
plug there.
You shameless.
I know. We should get some music for that cheap plug.
I don't know what the hell else happened on Raw besides the obvious.
Well, how about? I mean, Taz obviously in the main event. I mean, you mentioned
Who
Van
didn't see
Dam.
him jobbing coming?
Yeah.
Well,
that a
still,
sentence? No.
I mean, he was in the main event.
But yeah, you know what? That's true. He wasn't the main event. But here's what I was thinking with him coming to the ring. Yeah, it was obvious he was going to job ready. I agree with you. But my thinking was the way things have gone the last couple weeks is Taz was going to do the job. Austin was going to get mad and give him hell for it. And that was going to lead you into SmackDown thinking, well, maybe this is going to be where Taz snaps. But it was like Taz lost, and it was like, oh, big deal. Austin attacks Angle, and let's forget about that thing that probably most other people were thinking about.
Well, there's no guarantee that's not going to go into SmackDown.
But they should have done something at the end of Raw. Something at least, give him a dirty look,
I
you know.
Yeah, I
Something.
think they're selling up on Angle
You missed
Austin.
that spot on my car.
Yeah.
They're selling up on giving Austin the big heel spot over Angle. I think they probably just forgot about it. But I mean, you're right.
Forget about things like that.
So you do it on SmackDown.
You know.
Well, I'm just curious just to see how many viewers out there actually thought because they mentioned Ric Flair at the beginning of Raw, thought he was the mystery guy. I did. I thought he was. They didn't come out. Damn it.
It was nice though.
Yeah, but The Rock mentioned him.
The
My
Rock
God.
mentioned Frank Gotch. I almost fell over. It was the first time that I almost
I think
fell
that was
over.
written on his cool little Bring It t-shirt.
Had to be.
But
Frank Gotch used to have a T-shirt like that, by the way.
Yeah, it said I assassinated Lincoln on it. Hi, Lincoln, hi.
Team Lincoln.
Well, Abraham Lincoln was in fact the first NWA world
he
champion.
wrestled bears. Didn't you know that?
They were classics. They were better than Steve Blackman matches.
He
You'd
did
see
the-
the bear would like just go all out and kill him
He did,
from the
and
edge.
he did the job too. Lincoln did the job too.
Come on, Brian. I've been
Come
out
on,
of college
Tom.
for
He's
a
like
while.
a cult hero in
John
our
Sheik.
show. John Wilkes Booth.
Oh.
I thought it was Sir
That's
Han.
right.
Sir Han.
Lincoln.
Wait, that was Robert Kennedy.
Democrats.
See, you always learn a little bit of culture, a little bit of pop culture, a little bit of history on Pro Wrestling Review. But I
For all
think
you kids that aren't doing your homework now,
just watch Pro Wrestling Review. It's all you need.
Sirhan has been mentioned.
He was hiding in the ceiling towel, I heard.
Who killed John Kennedy? Do you know that?
Oh, I could go into a detailed explanation
Well,
encompassing
you
the
got
whole
about 30
show.
seconds. Go
Oh,
ahead.
30 seconds. I can't. I'm somewhere in that equation. I wasn't even born yet. It just encompasses everything.
you guys.
Somebody
got-
just want to say James Earl Ray and get it over with.
That was Martin Luther King, you dolt.
Oh, that was Martin Luther King. What am I thinking? Yeah, that's right.
But Lanny
Jack
Fratelli calls him James Earl
Ruby,
Jones.
wasn't it?
And this has been another edition of
no,
Jeopardy.
he shot Oswald.
Keyshawn Johnson. What the hell's the matter with
No,
you?
Jack Ruby shot Oswald, I believe.
Yes.
There's a
You
good
know
episode-
what? He's
there's
waiting
a-
outside for you
There's a good
too.
point on
Actually,
each
Lee
episode
Harvey
on this
Oswald
whole
had nothing to
subject.
do with the entire thing. He was eating a bag of chips when they found him in the movie theater. But anyway, we're black and white, so let's somebody send it out of here.
Well, I think you should take it, Trebek.
All right, so wait, that's not the end of the show. We'll be back next segment talking about something. We'll see you. Trivia once again for the 837th consecutive week. And for the 837th consecutive week, I am telling you to kick it and do whatever you have to do.
No, okay, I'm gonna read the
Sucker.
questions. Yeah, thanks. Question number 1: what is Kurt Angle's beverage of choice? It's milk, as if you couldn't tell.
No, it's not.
Yeah, I know. How many months
Well,
did
that
Kurt
was kind
Angle?
of like a hanging curveball there, wasn't it?
Yeah. How many months did Kurt Angle train before making his WWF debut? Everyone's laughing because we don't know, but
You just gave it away.
we're accepting 12 because we like that number.
But he was trained by James Earl Ray.
Right. Okay, question number 3. Who was the first person cut from Tough Enough? It was Daryl. And the question from last week's show, who did Steve Austin spray with beer? It was Shane McMahon, Vince McMahon, and The Rock. And this week's winner is Nathan Richard Hunt from Pittsburgh. Brian, you know what you have to do.
Well, Nathan, you win from Pizza Works, 1 large pie with 1 topping of your choice, an order of chicken wings, like there's some other kind of wings, and a 2-liter bottle of carbonated beverage. And you can redeem that at the Pizza Works outlet in Dravosburg.
Buffalo wings, those crappy things at that one restaurant
It's
that they opened a
still
chain
chicken.
for.
Still chicken, just different.
Well, how do they call it
Different sauce
buffalo
over
then?
there.
Or
Okay,
buffalo
I'm gonna
testicles
get to the
chicken?
question. Hey, this is the highlight of my week, man. You didn't just
I'm
do it.
sorry, Jim.
After you go on ProWrestlingReview.com, well, you know the deal. ProWrestlingReview.com. This week's question is: who did Triple H wrestle in December 1995 in your house? Who did he wrestle? What was the stipulation? Once again, who did Triple H wrestle at December 1995 in your house? Name the opponent and the stipulation.
And for a little hint, I believe the In Your House was called Beware of Santa.
Right, Xanta. But for all you people out there who think Tajiri should be world champ in the WWF, this was Hunter Hearst Helmsley at the time. So don't send us any emails saying it wasn't Triple H.
Yeah.
So
And
I've said
include
my
your name and
piece.
address, please. For the love of God, please. Tom?
And I think
Oh, that's right.
it.
I take this shindig out. So it's time to shout at the devil, and we'll be back with our next segment after this trivia segment. So stay tuned.
The biggest wrestling bust signings, whatever you want to call it, in wrestling history. And, I mentioned Big Show. Well, there's one. There's a guy making $1 million a year that don't deserve it.
What about that guy from WCW, Richard Grieco? Not Richard Grieco. Damn!
There we go.
The guy from Australia that they signed for like 1 week.
Oh, shit.
Bill Dundee.
Sam Greco, is that
Sam
his-
Greco.
or something like that.
They
Oh,
signed
is that the
for-
guy with the largest biceps in the world?
He had the largest nose in the world,
that
I
was the
think.
wrong guy.
Uh-huh.
You're thinking
The
of
fact,
another
the fact that
loser.
WCW shamelessly signed him just for their promotional tour of Australia and then killed him or cut him, whatever the hell you believe.
Hey, it's business.
They also did
Yeah.
that with
Yeah, notice they're out of it, too.
Well, that's true, too.
They also did that with Tank Abbott's buddy, Big Gay Al, or whatever the hell his name was.
Don't want to
Oh,
get into that, but okay.
no, but I'm going to touch on that Big Show
Big Show.
comment.
No,
I
that's
think,
a bust. That is a serious bust.
but I think the real problem lies with how WCW handled him when he first got there. They're
No,
like, we're going to wrestle
no.
Hogan. Oh, come on now. Tell me if you didn't
No.
start him out at the bottom and work him up.
His
You
best year was his rookie year. He has not even
That,
come close.
I think that's the kind of the point.
No, but it's performance-wise too, and you can't say, well, was
But the
it
thing
years
is, it
now?
was too much too soon. He burned himself out in a year.
He burned himself. Come
No, you know what?
on.
I agree with Rennie on this one. I mean, you got to think
No,
about the
get
WCW.
the hell
Oh,
outta
come on,
here.
Jim. Let's think about the WCW machine here. No, they wouldn't try to push someone too soon. And
No,
try to
I'm not
get
saying
too
they
much-
didn't push him too soon.
And then there's no motivation in that company. So it's not like there's anybody there to kick those guys into shape, saying you're lazy, you're not working hard.
But when he admits in the WWF he has no motivation, he admitted he got fat. He's come. He hasn't looked even remote. Even when he had the WCW title in WCW, obviously in WCW, he hasn't looked even close to what he looked like in the ring since then. He hasn't even come close.
Right. He's been lazy, and he's still lazy. You know, I'm not saying you're not right
But
about that.
I'm saying
I'm saying he was handled wrong from the beginning. That's my point.
I agree with that. But disregarding everything he did in WCW, the WWF giving him $1 million, I mean, you can't blame WCW for that. And the WWF, obviously, they're the smarter wrestling people because obviously they're still in business. They should have known, okay, they pushed him too far. Maybe he's not the star we think he is. Maybe we don't give him $1 million a year for 10 years.
But you know what? I'm going to go back on a comment Jim Ross made. And, you know, when they signed this guy, he's the type of guy, he has a size Vince McMahon likes. And from what he proved his rookie year, the guy can, when he's motivated, wrestle. And so,
When he's motivated.
But the problem, the thing that Jim Ross said, and I think is the best comment I've heard so far on it, he wasn't ready for prime time. People thought
Then
that
why do you
WCW was on the same level with the WWF. I think it's absolutely proved now that it never was.
Agreed.
And it's just another part of the product.
But why do you give him that high contract then?
Because they thought he was.
And they were obviously wrong.
Right.
one
Thus
of those
making
things-
him a bust.
Well,
To talk
Big
about
Show
what
will never
Brian
be
said.
anything. I'm sorry, he will not. He's nothing.
That's beside the point for this particular
Okay.
discussion. But to build on what Brian said, the WWF at the time when they signed Big Show away, they were just, I think it had been like 6 months, they were just getting the ratings back because they started getting the
Right.
ratings back in April '98. Big Show came in early '99. So again, like Brian said, they probably thought, WCW, they're still, pretty much neck and neck with us. This is a chance to sign away somebody that we think and
That's
that they
true,
think
too.
is a
That's
main
true,
event
too.
star.
But
So-
not to justify anything WCW did at any point, but they also didn't bury Paul Giant when he left WCW. I mean, it's not like he came into nothing. Big Show got
it doesn't matter.
Big Show got a pretty big push when he came into WWF too, and he has not. I'll say it again, taking into account the money, what he's done in the ring, and what he's done since then, I think it's a bust.
Well, can I throw my hat into
No,
the biggest
shut
bust?
up.
Get the hell out of here.
Go ahead, Tom.
I was going to say something. I don't remember now. Thanks a lot.
Sorry.
No, the biggest
I
bust
didn't
in
mean to
my
distract you.
the biggest bust in my eyes would have to be the made in the USA
Oh, man.
Lex Luger when he came to the WWF. Somehow he forgot how to wrestle as soon as he came to the WWF. He wrestled good matches in the NWA with either Dusty Rhodes, Barry
Bruiser
Windham,
Brody.
any of the Horsemen. Well, that's
Yeah.
when Bruiser Brody wasn't shooting on him, not metaphorically, obviously. But the fact of the matter is that the guy.
Wow.
It's not
Good night.
literally.
See ya.
He didn't pull a gun out and start shooting him. There you go.
Yeah, okay.
But the
okay.
fact of the matter that the guy had a bus and a nation behind him, and he couldn't defeat a 505-pound fat ass, basically, is beyond me. He won by DQ, but I know it was a moral
was
victory
counted.
because we were at war with Japan in 1995. No one knows that.
Those
That's a
dirty
well-kept
dastardly
secret.
Japs, I tell you.
You know, a funny story that people at home may not know is that Lex Luger's mouth actually cost him the WWF title at WrestleMania 10.
Well, there's a shock.
The night before, or like the weekend of WrestleMania, they were in New York, and he shot his mouth off at a bar that he was going to be given the WWF title at
No.
WrestleMania 10. Apparently, that was the plan, and he was going to lose it to Bret Hart, and then Vince got mad at him and said, "Screw you, pal, you ain't getting anything," and so he never won the World
Gee, I wonder if he had any influence on Buff Bagwell.
I think Made in the USA Lex Luger is one of those situations where Vince McMahon thought he had somebody that could replace Hogan and realized, after the match at SummerSlam '93 that it just wasn't the right guy. And the gimmick, of
Oh,
course,
was
was
that
bad. I mean,
Yeah.
the Made in the USA thing, I don't know where they came up with it.
and yet the
or why.
patriotic American's working now.
Huh?
With Kurt Angle.
Kurt Angle.
Oh, and I'd like to point out, just for the record, because I know we'll get an email on it, Yokozuna was, in fact, from Japan. Gorilla Monsoon said so himself many times. Let's not forget the fact that he was Samoan.
Well, I was going to say,
Hey,
Bret
he's from
Hart.
San Francisco, for the love of God.
Well, that's close enough to Hawaii for me.
But it was at WrestleMania, Bret Hart and Yokozuna, and Bobby Heenan, the greatest line, people were chanting USA. Bret Hart's from Canada, Yokozuna's from Samoa.
Or Jim Duggan trying to get a USA chant in WrestleMania 6 in the Sky Dome in Toronto, Canada. That was classic.
So did Bad News Brown, though, so.
If you actually think about it, if they were chanting USA, they were chanting for Yokozuna because he was freaking American.
And he was the heel, right?
Good Lord.
Samoa is a U.S. held territory,
Oh,
so yeah. Either way, even if he wasn't born in San Francisco.
I'm not making any more historical or geographical comments for the rest of this show.
Well, let's get into some more busts here.
Absolutely.
And obviously not the ones on the wall behind Jim right there. So.
Well, you know what? How about Tammy Sitch? It's like, hey, I'm on top of the world. Let's do drugs.
Or let's dive off the cliff.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah, but she
what
was
an
good while she
idiot.
lasted.
Along,
she was a
along those lines, how about Sable? I mean, here's somebody who.
She was no
Sable was
good,
just
though.
stupid.
She was.
Oh,
an
still, I mean, they put a lot of money and production and promotion into her.
But the thing is, they got it all out of her, and then when she
That's a good
basically went
point.
off the
Yeah,
deep end.
They did make some money off
The same
of
thing
her.
with Sunny. I mean,
I
she
don't
was
even-
good for the time being. She
I
was
don't
like the
think she was
first.
ever any good.
That's
Sable?
debatable, but the point is, people
Oh,
bought
that's
into her.
Sunny.
Sonny, she was awful.
They made
I
that
think
song
she was a
about
lot
her.
of.
They did
Well,
make
I
that
think she
song.
was a personality wrapped up. Well, I don't know.
She was nothing.
No, you're right. You're right. She
She
was nothing.
stunk.
Well, some of the other guys that we talked about off camera was Mark
Oh.
Henry, of course, was a huge bust. And
Why don't we come back and talk about more
Yes.
busts?
Sure, why not?
Okay, so take it out.
okay, we're gonna come back and talk about more busts. See ya.
Real jerk, you know that. Busts in pro wrestling, and for all our younger viewers out there, we're meaning flops, meaning guys that didn't amount to anything. We're
You
not
got
going
paid
to
a lot
show.
of money for
We're
it,
not going to
too.
show any nipples or anything like that on this segment number 5. So let's go right back into the
This
big
is actually
bust.
a good point, Tom. We should name this like, Four Girls.
Well,
Just
the girl,
suck.
the lady up in the top left corner, her husband quit the WWF,
Right.
and then she left him because of
It's
it.
like, if you combine all 4 of these women, you get like one decent wrestler.
Enough with your
I know.
women's
let me
wrestling.
throw
Meanwhile,
my-
Molly Holly can't get a push.
Well, she's fat and overweight according
That's
to some
right.
WWF
Yeah, she's only
officials.
5'1", so
Childbearing
screw her,
hips.
Stupid little midget.
I'm gonna throw my.
Sorry.
I'm going to throw my hat in once again for the second time in a row for biggest bust. Sid Vicious, in any way, shape, or form, any promotion, was just worthless. I mean, in softball, he was an asset. But in the wrestling ring, he was an ass.
I don't know, because I don't think he got that. I don't know if the money was huge, but I mean, they got some mileage out of him. I mean, there
For
was
a
some,
week.
There was
Yeah.
well, maybe his last stint in WCW, perhaps.
The best thing Sid Vicious ever did was that he showed up in a promotion, stayed for a week, fans started to boo him,
Right, he
then he
got-
left. And then he would come back and people were like, yeah, Sid. And then it's like, oh, God, now I remember what he used to wrestle like.
Oh yeah, he got.
And
like you
boom,
said, you got
again.
that 2 weeks of mileage out of him. I mean,
Right. And somehow he's won world titles everywhere, which is a tremendous.
Maybe he's the biggest farce of all time. I don't think he's the biggest flop. One of the biggest busts. We're arguing semantics, hell. So anyway, the Island of Samoa.
No, I think another one that I brought up before last segment was Tatanka. I thought he was a huge bust. I mean, there's a guy that they put a lot of stock in, and again, you have to remember what time, the time period that it was. You know, the WWF.
We were at
pushing-
war with the Native Americans.
Exactly. We were pushing.
Well, he was a face here for a while. So.
The WWF was still doing the cartoon characters, and Tatanka portrayed an Indian, and he had a huge winning streak that came to an end. I think to Ludwig Borga, another winner.
He's boxing again,
But then, I mean, it was just one day in like February '95, Tatanka decided to gain 50 pounds, and that was the end of that. I mean, so
yeah, I don't think he was.
I don't
ever
think there was a
that
whole
good
lot
to
of
begin
talent
with.
there either.
Right, and I just one of those guys, a lot of promotion, like Luger, and yeah, you're right, didn't go anywhere.
Well, how about Bam Bam Bigelow? There's a guy who
Yeah.
never amounted to a damn thing. I mean, he got a big push when he came to the WWF in 1987, and when he what was it, WrestleMania 4, I think it was, when he had the tournament. And they actually had a lot of people believing that Bam Bam Bigelow was actually going to win that tournament, and he actually feuded with Ted DiBiase afterward, and it seemed like he had all this momentum, and then nothing. And he just, I guess maybe the holes are exposed. It was a guy, though, for that time, for a guy to be 300 plus pounds to drop kick and be able to fly was just great, but just wasn't that
I got
good.
some knowledge out of him in ECW though. Obviously better suited for smaller
Yeah,
promotions.
that's about.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to imply ECW as a smaller promotion. I'm sorry.
I got the crown
God
jewel
damn it.
of big bust in either promotion, NWA, WCW, or the WWF. Giant Gonzalez, you may know him as Elegante.
hell.
He's 7'8". Let's give him a push. Let's give him a car. Let's give him a van. Let's push him around
Let's
the world.
give him a
and tour.
suit that has hair by the groin, for God's sakes.
His finest moment ever. I don't care what any of you say. WrestleMania 9, when he put the ether on the. I
It
believe
was
it was a rag.
chloroform.
What? I
think
can
a man
smell
with
the
that big-
ether.
You think a man with that big wouldn't have to resort to that sort of thing?
Yeah, drowning
Really
someone with
terrible.
ether or chloroform, is you like to call it.
Well, like you said, Bobby Heenan, I can smell it. Meanwhile, they're outside, But that's beside the point. If you go back and watch that match from WrestleMania 9, he's wrestling The Undertaker. His forearm shots, The Undertaker, couldn't have cracked this table. I mean, it was just like glancing blow.
And the table's defense. I mean,
That was back when the Undertaker was healthy.
Well, I get another good one. Now we're talking about the Undertaker. How about the fake Undertaker from SummerSlam '93? What a
94.
terrible. Was it '94? What a terrible idea. I mean, not only the way they played this whole gimmick out was just awful. I mean, it's like they just gave it away. All of a sudden, 1 week, that's when they used to do those little control centers.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, they weren't even, they were still
Control
kind of,
centers.
that's what they were called. That's
Tammy
what
Sitch hosted them, by the way.
well, and so did Joe
Charlie
Fowler
Min.
and all those idiots. But that was like for a while whenever they were, still trying to decide, does Ted DiBiase have the real Undertaker or does Paul Bearer have the real Undertaker? And 1 week they just came out and said, hey, they're going to fight each other. I mean, thanks to the build-up, idiots.
Well, one of the things, too, if you watch the match, I think Jerry Lawler, no, actually it was Vince McMahon, the crowd was completely silent because it sucked.
Yeah.
And he's like, this crowd is stunned. They don't know what to do. No, it's because no one knows how to wrestle. That's
Did
the
you
biggest
hear the
problem.
story behind it? They were supposed to do something where they were supposed to merge into one. That was like a popular story around that time.
Yeah.
Okay, how about this for biggest bust? The casket match for the 94 Royal Rumble.
Oh, boy. Is that
You
Yokozuna?
talk-
Is that where The Undertaker died?
Yeah, and he rose up, and it was bad.
That's because his wife had a kid, didn't she?
He rose up from a casket because his wife had a kid?
Well,
I'm taking it out of context, obviously.
Justifying
But, you know,
this?
Well, no.
Guys take time off now, they get hit in the leg with pipes or you break their necks or something cool
Like
like that.
Sting.
You don't die.
Shut up, man.
Yeah. That'd be kind of cool if they did apply some of the 80s stuff to like what happens today. Like Rock's going to do a movie so he just melts or something like that. Then
His
he
feet throw
reforms.
up.
But
Yeah.
Speaking of feet throw up, what about Jim Hellwig, our own favorite Ultimate
boy.
Warrior, or just a warrior now, I believe?
I don't know if I'd consider him a bust because he probably did make some money for the WWF in the 80s, but he wasn't very good,
Well, I think the WCW version of him was a huge bust.
except for that
When
one
he broke
night.
his leg?
That one night, but then whenever he decided he was going to be Jesus and or a vampire, either or, because when Hogan would look in the mirror and he wouldn't see him, or Eric
Oh.
Bischoff couldn't see him.
No disrespect to him whatsoever, but I think the Renegade has to go up on the list of biggest busts.
Oh, boy.
The
Not
thing
his
is, though,
fault.
Yeah.
I think he did
No.
have some
Yeah.
wrestling ability. The fact that they stuck him with the gimmick killed him.
exactly.
That killed his
That's really a
chances
shame
of...
because after a while he began working on it and tried to add some moves and
Well, it was funny because the pay-per-view that he debuted at, the crowd was, they loved him because they thought obviously that it was the Ultimate Warrior. And then as time went on, I think one of the matches he wrestled at 95 Bash at the Beach, he wrestled Paul Orndorff, and the crowd was actually chanting Orndorff,
Yeah.
chanting his name.
And
And that
let's
says a
not
lot
forget-
because Orndorff was a huge heel at the
Oh,
time.
yeah.
right. And I mean, again, not to blame him because he got pushed into a situation he never should have been in, but he got so exposed in that match for his
Oh, yeah.
incredible lack of talent.
And
Experience.
again, you can't blame him because when someone
No.
comes to you and say, we're going to give you this gimmick, we're going to pair it with Hulk Hogan, similar to the Big Show, we're going to pair it with Hulk Hogan, we're going to do all this stuff, who's going to say no? You're going to make some money from pay-per-view buy rates and stuff.
Well, I think the Renegade was a lot worse situation in that regard. But
I could-
real quick-
I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, I was just going to move on to the next. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, because there's not a whole lot of debate here, Eric Watts. I mean, you talk about a guy who's pretty lucky that, that he's Bill Watts' sperm.
I still have that Techno Team 2000 poster.
You know what? This is what's burned into my
I'll
brain.
buy that from you.
This is what's burned in my brain about Eric Watts forever. The STF outside the gas station. On
With the
Army
gasoline coming out of the
Oh,
station. That was
great.
wonderful.
It was great. It was like, there were technicians running in to tell them they had a gas spill at the base.
Good.
6.
Tom, you brought it up during the break, one of the bigger busts in WCW history. So I'll let you say the name.
Jim, I honestly don't remember what I
I
said.
think I said it, actually.
Well, whoever, the
Master
rock
P?
star. There you
Oh,
go.
yeah.
There's a guy who threatened, promised to sell at the Superdome, and
Oh, he threatened to sell out the Superdome.
Do you remember that weird noise he made? That
yeah, that was.
Remember when they
It was
surrounded
like an
Kurt
owl.
Hennig after he broke through CD? Oh,
It was like an
good
owl.
old
I
days.
can't believe WCW went out of business. There's
Get
no
out of the
justice.
segment.
Would
The
they
fa-
pay him about $80 million?
Something
Well,
like
the
that.
fact that there were color wars behind like red
Hey,
and
he was
blue.
the 11th highest grossing superstar in music.
Who buys his crap? Anyway, with that,
I guess we're gonna come back and we're gonna do rants. So please return.
Was still friends with Shane McMahon, which was established a couple weeks ago, and the entire WWF roster beat the crap out of him. I mean, I think that'd be a pretty good clue as to why he left. But it's just one of those things in the internet. It's interesting to point these things out, but as you saw on WWF television, Test explained it, and lo and behold, he said it's because the WWF roster beat the crap out of him on Raw. So all you people on the internet again, and just calm down. Things will get explained eventually, and don't be so anal retentive.
How about the anal retentive chef from Saturday Night Live? He was great. Anyway,
Was that the anal retentive handyman?
all right. I'd like to talk about Hurricane Helms here for a few moments. A couple weeks ago, whenever they started making light of his Green Lantern tattoo, and I thought it was pretty funny, and I thought it was even funnier last week whenever he gave Steve Austin his Green Lantern t-shirt. And I'll admit it was kind of amusing when he cut the promo talking about the Green Lantern beating all these people I've never heard of because I really don't follow comic books. And sure, that was pretty funny. And I think you can take this somewhere of Hurricane Helms sort of being the superhero worshipping loser, but the cape and the face paint I think was taking it a little too far. I couldn't help but think back to like 1994. I was waiting for Aldo Montoya to come waltzing out and guys like that. I just can't help but think that people who don't necessarily watch wrestling all the time, who just maybe turn it on occasionally to see what's going on, probably saw that and turned that the hell off. I think they should take Hurricane Helms, take him kind of back to his normal look. You can sort of still make him the superhero worshiper. I think that's a funny gimmick, but I think you kind of lose the comedy whenever you do it like this. And on that vein, I'd also like to say that I think the WWF needs to start becoming a little bit more serious with the Alliance characters, because they've really sort of just made this whole group a bunch of bumbling idiots. And there is really, truly no reason to buy Unforgiven, because there's no reason to believe that Booker T is going to beat The Rock. There's no reason to believe that any of the WCW, ECW guys, other than Rob Van Dam, are going to be able to make an impact, because they've all been booked to look like idiots. If the WWF wants to make the Alliance have an impact and want people to buy their television shows thinking that there's a chance the WWF can lose, they need to start making some of these guys serious. They need to start giving them some big wins over guys who actually have some name value. And they need to start doing it soon, because if they don't, the interest is really going to start dropping off.
It's good.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm going to do something that, none of us have ever done on the show. I'm going to talk about why I think Bret Hart deserves a lot of the fans' respects and a lot of the people like us, why he deserves the respect that he sometimes doesn't get. While I was ignoring Raw last night, one of my friends and I were talking about just old wrestling stuff, and one of the points that I brought up was about Bret Hart and how he really didn't get a lot of credit when he was with the WWF and when he was world champion, for two reasons actually. One, he was a world champion, and he said this many a times, he was a world champion after the WWF got away from their big guy champion. So he kind of took the WWF title and changed it into something, somewhat of a belt that meant something, and he would deliver great matches and things of that sort. And the other thing, and this draws on the WWF title, Bret Hart took the WWF title at a time when there really wasn't anybody to wrestle. I mean, other than wrestling guys like Crush, Virgil, Kamal, and Doink the Clown, there really wasn't a lot of talent out there until you got towards 1996 when you had Diesel and Scott Hall and people like that. So I think you have to really remember that Bret Hart had the world title at a time when there really wasn't anybody to wrestle, and he still somehow made the title seem important. But unfortunately, because of things that have happened with Bret Hart complaining about Survivor Series and about how Vince McMahon ruined his life and how Shawn Michaels said he slept with Sonny, all that other crap, that's what Bret Hart will be remembered for most, not the fact that he was a good champion at a time when wrestling wasn't.
Well, mine is not to criticize, it is but to inform, but I might get a little critical, so just bear with me here. Dean Malenko's career is coming to a close. That's it's obvious. He's 40-some years old, probably 40, early 40s, obviously. His career is coming to a close. Now, the WWF has two choices how to handle this thing. One, they can just ignore it like they do with everything else. Or two, they can actually promote it and maybe actually make it worthwhile watching. Let me see what I'm trying to think here. So I got Crash Holly on the brain. I got something saved for him after this little Dean Malenko thing. But maybe promote Malenko's, say, last month of wrestling on Raw. And I realize nobody knows who Dean Malenko is. Oh, he's that 007 guy. He's one of the best wrestlers in the past 2 decades, I would say. It comes from one of the best wrestling families, the Malenkos, next to the Von Erichs, as messed up as they were. But the fact is, you could promote Malenko's farewell tour, retirement tour, if you will, throughout the weeks of Raw. And he's going to have it Apex, I guess you could say, at a pay-per-view, wrestling someone like a Shane Helms or whatever he calls himself now, where Malenko is in fact passing like a light heavyweight torch, so to speak, to a younger guy that's deserving. But the fact, WWF, please, don't ignore Dean Malenko's retirement. Don't let him pop up on the control center, as Brian was alluding to earlier, or something weird along those lines, WWF New York eating fries for life or something like that. Handle it the right way like you've done with nothing else in the past. And Crash Holly, I have something for you. Do you serve any purpose anymore on the WWF roster besides being a little guy that gets drunk and throws up on himself? I don't know. I ran out of breath. I ran out of spit.
Well, one of the questions I had to ask is, why did Mick Foley bring his book with him to Tough Enough?
He is a fat piece of
Was he trying to
slob.
sell it to the kids while they were wrestling? I mean,
Could he possibly prostitute himself any more than he already has?
I was waiting for him to bring one of those little robots that a 7th grader built for that stupid show he has.
Dewey needs new jeans. School's starting.
We'll save that for another rant. Oh yeah, I'll plug my column first.
Go ahead.
But,
You're in your
that's
list.
okay. If you want to read my column, you can pick it up on the newsstands tomorrow, or you can read it on the web. It's www.triblive.com/sports.
Very good.
Thank you.
My column is called Sharpshooter. You can read it in the Daily News, pick it up on newsstands everywhere right now, or you can check it out on the internet at www.dailynewsmckeesport.com in the columnist section. And let me just also remind you to check the ETC from actually Friday's ETC story I have on Jerry the King Lawler. If you didn't pick it up Friday, gnashing of teeth to you, but you can read it on the internet.
Reach us at ProWrestlingReview@lycos.com if you want to chime in on this whole Bubba thing. ProWrestlingReview.com, click on trivia. The question again for this week is, as I get my minuscule piece of paper here, who did Cue card. Who did Triple H wrestle in December 95's In Your House, and what was the match stipulation? So you got to answer all four, name and address, you know the deal.
Website, once again, as always, throughout the show, throughout all 6 segments, throughout the rants, throughout now, is ProWrestlingReview.com. Trivia, check out some of the columns, check out all the cool stuff on there, send us some email.
And we should also throw out one more time, just to be the professionals that we are, September 8th, Emerald Room, McKees Rocks. It's a week from tonight. We've been asked to be there by Bubba the Bulldog, and to show that we are the responsible journalists that we are, we're going to be there. We're going to check out the show, and we're going to report back.
Like I said before, I'm going to do everything I can to be there, just so I can talk to Bubba and see what else he has to say when I'm actually here.
And like you said, the show, obviously the website, everything. Check out everything. Stay tuned for the new season coming up in the first few weeks of what's next month, September, something like that, August, whatever it is. So for myself, for all 3 of us, it's Pro Wrestling Review. We're back together again, so check out next week. We'll see you.